Good evening, everyone. Today is September 6th, 2022. This is the regular meeting of the Cupertino City Council.
Recording in progress.
And I'm going to go ahead and start our meeting. Once again, this is the regular meeting on September 6th, 2022 of the Cupertino City Council. If you would please join us in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Way.
Here.
Councilmember Willie.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Here.
Mayor Paul.
Here. Thank you very much. And first on our agenda tonight is under ceremonial matters and presentations. The subject is the consideration of a proclamation recognizing September as National Preparedness Month. And you have your proclamation in the packet. I want to thank our Emergency Services Division under the City Manager's Office. And I think, Pamela, would you like to go ahead and introduce the person accepting the proclamation, Tom Chin, this evening?
Of course.
And yeah, just maybe turn down the volume on your computer.
I forgot that I should probably be using this.
And muting as well, yes, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still getting used to the new setup, so I'm going to turn off my video and then so I can see everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this evening I have the pleasure of introducing our Emergency Services Manager, Thomas Chin. He will be accepting the proclamation for this effort.
Great. Thank you very much, and welcome, Thomas. Did you want to say a few words? Well, before you do say a few words, Tom, I want to thank you on behalf of not just the council, but the entire community for the incredible work that people did over the course of last weekend. It's pretty amazing that we were able to, on such very brief notice, especially with the heat advisory, to open up the City Hall as an emergency, shelter for people needing air conditioning in the 109, 110 some odd degree heat. And so thank you for people on your staff for being there in City Hall. And I know our city manager dropped by. Councilmember Moore mentioned that she had dropped by earlier in the day, and actually went there at the very end of the period of time, and there was still one person over there. And so thank you very much for all the members of the community that volunteered as well to staff that shelter for City Hall, because the library, of course, was not open that day. So Tom, did you want to say a few words about this proclamation?
Sure. And good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members and City Manager Pam Wu. Today, I am honored to join the council and to receive this proclamation for National Preparedness Month. I am representing the tireless community of volunteers and public safety officials that the mayor referenced today. In particular, I'll reference our Citizen Corps, our resident first responders here in the city who stepped up over the weekend, not only to provide the cooling center, but our COVID-19 testing site over at Creekside Park. It's that dedication to the community and willingness to step forward when emergencies are clear that represent this city so well. Additionally, I'd like to mention our block leader program, who build community cohesion and help our communities become more aware, looking out for one another, especially during a heat event like today or this week. I do urge all residents to take the opportunity now to encourage their loved ones and family by preparing themselves and their neighborhood and registering for alert and warning at alertscc.org. Once again, I thank you, the council, for your support and your dedication to our community as well, and your support of our citizen volunteer first responders and our public safety officials. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Tom. And so, Madam City Manager, if you have your camera, you can feel free to turn on. I noticed in the tiles we actually have space for one more in there. Or if your Zoom camera is not available, we'll go ahead and take this shot, or maybe even the city clerk if she wants to turn on a camera over there. But otherwise, let's go ahead and take this shot. Oh, I do see your, okay, wonderful. And I guess let's hold it for a few seconds. All right, thanks everybody, and we'll go on to our second item on the agenda, which is a proclamation recognizing September as National Suicide Prevention Month. And so I want to be able to provide the city manager as well an opportunity to present the person accepting the proclamation. And I believe that's from our staff, our Director of Parks and Recreation, or Recreation and Community Services, Rochelle Sanders. Rochelle Sander. Is Director Sander here, or Acting Director Sander here?
I believe Acting Director Sanders is available, and then she's also available on Zoom, and she just turned on her video. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Rochelle. And on behalf of our community council, I also wanted to state that we're very appreciative of all the work that our staff does, especially with regard to, as pertinent to this proclamation, the mental health of our residents. We do have Postponements coming up, and that was something that was particularly focused upon the mental health of our teens, centered around something that was quite popular and remains quite popular in Cupertino, of course, which is our boba culture, so to speak. And so thank you very much for all of that effort over the course of not just the event that we're looking at in mid-September, but also the pandemic. There were all sorts of measures taken by Recreation and Community Services to reach out to the community to make sure, for instance, that Halloween wasn't some kind of completely different experience with regard to not being able to have people reach out and celebrate the festivities. Cupertino Cares was something put forward by Recreation and Community Services, and so just to really express that gratitude over the years between our city council, our city, and the department. And so we're very pleased that you're here today to present, or actually I should say, accept the proclamation recognizing September as National Suicide Prevention Month. Welcome, Director Sander.
Thank you. So thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. We are very honored to receive this important proclamation. We have done our best to bring to the community things that do show mental health resources. But as we bring awareness to suicide prevention and mental health in September, I do want to invite our teens to join us on Saturday, September 17th from noon to 3 p.m. at the Bobatino event in Civic Center Plaza. Teens are invited to enjoy free boba, recreational activities, performances, and connect with the local mental health resources, such as Apart But Not Alone, LGBT youth space, and stress-free teens. More information about the event can be found on the city website, and this has become a very important, and it is a very well-attended event in past years. So we are very excited to be able to bring it back in person. So thank you again, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for your continued support and actions in promoting awareness.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Rochelle. And so we'll do the same thing for this proclamation. If you could activate your camera. And again, we have some extra tiles available. So if anyone between our city attorney, city clerk, city manager would like to join us, please feel free to do so at this time.
Mayor, I don't see the vice mayor's camera.
Sorry, my computer is still, I'm still having technical issues.
Some technical issues?
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe the camera of the city hall can.
Yeah, if video can activate one of the cameras to Vice Mayor Chow, perhaps the community hall camera could focus in on.
I believe,
on the
Mayor,
Vice
I
Mayor.
believe they said they could Photoshop her in, if that's.
Okay, well, I
That's
guess
an option for you.
we'll have that going forward solution.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at your cameras. Thanks. All right, great. Thank you very much, everyone. And so we will go on to postponements and orders of the day. Madam City Clerk, are there any requested postponements or reordering of our agenda from staff?
No postponements, Mayor.
Okay. Now let me ask our members of City Council, is there anybody that would like to postpone any items or rearrange the items for consideration this evening on the agenda? And just a show of hands in your Zoom function would probably be the easiest to see. I see one attendee with a hand raised, but I'm going to assume that that's for oral communications, which will be next. I don't see any requests for postponements or rearranging the agenda, and so let's go on to oral communications. Before we get into oral communications, I just want to let everyone here, as well as watching the proceedings on either YouTube or Zoom, know that we're in the midst of, as everyone knows, a heat wave. In case there are any power issues, we will be reconvening in City Hall. City Hall has a generator, however, Community Hall does not. And so if you happen to see this, just suddenly somewhat inexplicably blip out, stay tuned, and we will go ahead and reconvene the meeting as soon as we can over in the adjoining building. So at this time, we have oral communications. Oral communications are for any matters that are not on the agenda. And if you'd like to speak for up to 3 minutes, you can go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. I do have a number of attendees on blue cards, but I believe that some of them are on Zoom as well this evening. And so you can go ahead and consolidate your time for up to 2 minutes per person for a total of up to 10 minutes if you have a presentation. So that essentially means that 5 people or more can consolidate for that 10-minute allocation of time. And you can speak in 2-minute increments in groups as well. So I'm going to go ahead and call on the first speakers in Zoom. And the people that I see here are listed as follows. Brooke Ezot, Muni Matapatla, Jennifer, Peggy Griffin, the Y Organization, and then in the blue cards, I have a group of people with the subject Blackberry Farm Golf. I have Thomas Xu, and I also have the Y team on blue cards as well. So as long as you have your hand raised or the blue card submitted, or if you email city clerk, that's one word, at Cupertino.org, that's cityclerk@Cupertino.org. During the time that the first person is speaking, you will be called on to speak under oral communications. Once again, the first speaker is Brooke Ezot. Brooke, as with everyone else individually, you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. Welcome, Brooke.
Yes, thank you. I would like to give my time to Mr. Don Hasley, if that's possible.
Yes, very good. That's perfectly good. So I have, thank you, Brooke. And just to indicate where we're at there, I have Don Halsey, Judy Lomas, and Mohul Dolakia on blue cards. And so Brooke will allocate your time over there. So then that would become a total of 8 minutes. I'm sorry? I'm sorry. There are too many volume inputs, so I'm not sure where that comment came from.
Mayor?
But, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I see that 2 members of the Y organization have not raised their hands, and I just want to make sure that they're aware of the part of the process where they need to have their hands raised beginning right now in order for them to have the full-time allotment.
Okay, very good. By the time we get to the Y organization, we'll, there are multiple hands now raised for that same one under Zoom. So let me go ahead and Brooke, we won't count her as the first speaker. Muni Matapatla, for the purposes of people raising their hands to be recognized to speak. Muni, you are our first speaker. You'll have up to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're audible. Thank you.
My name is Muni Matipatla, a longtime resident of Cupertino and serving on the Planning Commission. I'm here speaking for myself as a private resident of Cupertino, not representing any organization or a position I hold. As you may know, October of every year is celebrated as a Hindu Heritage Month around the globe. Many governments around the globe at city, state, and country level proclaim it as such. You may also be aware of racist anti-Hindu attacks on Indian community in our country, very similar to anti-Asian attacks seen recently. I believe the local chapter of Hindu American Foundation has reached out to our city in the past, as well as recently, for such proclamation from our city. As you know, our city celebrates Hindu festivals such as Holi, Diwali every year. We are very thankful for that, as it gives us a sense of belonging and acceptance in our adopted country, and gives an opportunity for our kids to celebrate their rich heritage. Given the amount of contributions Indian Americans to our community and the city, I request our city to proclaim October as a Hindu Heritage Month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mooney. And I'll read off the remaining hands in Zoom. In addition to the people that were read off, we have Lisa Warren, Rhoda Fry, 2 more hands from the the WAI organization, and caller 2135. Madam City Clerk, are there any additional blue cards that came in during the time that Mooney Matapatla was speaking?
No, Mayor.
Okay, and were there any emails that you received at cityclerk@cupertino.org?
No emails, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, so our next speaker is going to be Jennifer. Welcome, Jennifer, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin. I'm very glad to see everybody here with all this heat wave going on and people home and in the hall. I'm sure you guys have nice air conditioning there. Anyway, I just wanted to bring up an issue which we all have been kind of living through. I'm very, very concerned about the passage of such bill. Passage by the Assembly and Senate of 2 bills, particularly. They have been sent off to the governor for signatures if he so desires. This is AB 2011 and AB 2097. AB 2011, if you all weren't aware, is a bill that would allow housing to be put into commercial strips, office buildings, tech parks, grocery stores, gas stations, who knows. I'm very concerned about this bill. And then AB 2097 is the Let's Don't Have Parking Spaces for Shoppers bill. And it's doing things at a state level that should be done at the local level. So it is not allowing cities to set minimums for new construction and housing. And I'm very, very concerned about the state taking over this type of a thing. We have a lot of nannyism going on here. Hey, my sister-in-law was a nanny, no problem with them. But you don't want the state to be dictating things at this level. This is, how many parking spaces are we going to have at the new grocery store, at Town and Country Center in Lafayette? Who knows? Okay, this is not stuff that the state should be doing. The state should be taking care of power outages, fire danger, sending politicians to Washington, D.C., et cetera, not micromanaging what is going on with parking spaces in every city in the state. That is just pushing it to the limit. I'm also concerned because the public repeatedly has been left out of this discussion. We have not been able to voice any opinion on this. We have not been able to vote. And these 2 bills are following other bad bills like SB 330, SB 35, and SB 9 and 10, which are the 2 twin bad bills of all time. And this all started with SB 50, which we fought down. I spent a lot of my time about 3 years ago fighting SB 50. Now we have vestiges of SB 50 that have come back in different ways to haunt us. I really think that the increase in the RENA numbers and the frenzy that the cities across the state are being put into is a way of hiding the damages that SB 9 and SB 10. It's nanny. It's keeping us busy. And I really think that this needs to stop. I'm scared of this type of political corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council members and staff. In all the housing element site selection meetings, the staff and the consultant always start with the east side of town. Residents have repeatedly asked that you mix it up and start with the west side, but nobody listens. I'm asking that at the next housing element meeting regarding sites, please start on the west side and work east. This matters because these are lengthy meetings and input varies based on how long the meeting goes. It also changes the perspective after seeing the west side first or the east side first. Residents from the west side wanting to speak on sites have to always wait hours before they get their turn. This is not fair. Mix it up. Start from the west and move to the east next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Next, we have our first hand raised from the WAI organization. And so I believe that there are consolidated hands raised here and that there is a presentation. And so having 3 hands raised, let's go ahead and provide 6 minutes from video for this presentation. Welcome. And so we'll go ahead and start for the public speaking. And let me see if you're, okay. So let's go ahead. Can you unmute your microphone? And I know it might be confusing, but because there are in fact 3 different callers that are identified as the WAI organization. So let me go ahead and see if we can try to unmute all 3 of them at the same time. And then I'll go ahead and mute the, oh, looks like that might have worked.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm going to be the first speaker. Okay. Hi, we're WAY, or the Wildfire Awareness Initiative, and over the past 10 years, wildfires have been shown to cause huge problems towards the environment, and this is only worsening due to climate change. And in honor of the September Preparedness Month, we think this is the perfect time to speak on how to prepare for wildfires. First off, who are we? We are a certified 501c3 nonprofit with a team of about 15 high schoolers in the Bay Area. We have a mission to spread awareness about the various impacts of wildfires on both the environment and economy, and prepare the community for anything wildfire related. Some of our accomplishments include presenting for the Boy Scouts, working with our school, and a STEM convention. We also volunteered with the local fire department to create disaster kits. We presented at city events, and we host webinars. We organized a fundraiser through Panda Express, recorded a podcast, and also reached 2K followers on our Instagram. But enough about us. Now on to the problem, wildfires. In just 2021 alone, 2.5 million acres of land burnt in California. That's equivalent to 2 million football fields, or about 3.2 Rhode Islands. But what's causing so much land to be burnt? The answer really is just humans. That's pretty much it, whether it be vehicles, campfires, smoking, or arson.
Oh, we're on slide 12 right now.
Yeah, went fast. All right, thank you.
Just
2 more slides.
Just let me know which.
Yeah, just the next one. Okay. In the past 10 years, California has seen 10 of its worst wildfires in history. In other words, the problem is not getting better. Next slide. And it's connected to climate change. All the greenhouse gases we collectively emit cause higher temperatures, meaning more frequent droughts and less water for plants. And dry vegetation provides the perfect fuel for wildfires to both spark and spread far. Next slide. We see the effect of fast-spreading wildfires just in Lake Tahoe. August of last year, Lake Tahoe had its worst fire, the Caldor Fire, which wasn't just the worst fire in Lake Tahoe, but also had the worst air quality in the whole world at a record high of over 600 and destroying 500 homes and nearly 200,000 acres. Next slide. As we can see, wildfires not only negatively impact the environment, but it also impacts our natural resources, wildlife, infrastructure. Next slide. Economy and health. Next slide, minorities.
Okay. Now enough about the problem and more on to what we can do as prevention and preparing. Wildfires will never be eliminated entirely, but we can definitely help reduce the problem. So most importantly is to educate the community on how to do this, since each individual action counts. Recent studies have shown that if each home cleans up the dead plant material around their house, that'll reduce the wildfire risk for the community by 75%, meaning that if each person were to follow these zones by ready, set, go, and just trim trees, remove dead plant matter, and unblock emergency paths, that means we can reduce the wildfire risk by over 75%. And through our research, we've accumulated a simple and easy to follow plan. And here's just a quick overview of that. So the second most important thing following cleaning up dead plant matter would be preparing a disaster bag. Many disaster bags are currently not purchased because if you were to go on Amazon or any other online site, most disaster bags are ranging from $100 to $200. But disaster bags really don't have to be that expensive, meaning that most households already have the majority of these items, and it's just simply taking the 5 minutes to put the items in a backpack and have it ready to go in the case of an emergency. And next slide. And the third most important thing would be how to stay alerted, especially during like a wildfire season at September when it's over 107 degrees, which means wildfires definitely are much more likely to spike. But it's very important to stay alerted using social media, radio, or there's an app or website, Alert SCC, that'll give you updates specifically for your city. Next slide. Now, with all this preparedness info, how should we go about spreading it? Next slide. I think most importantly, to educate the community, what can be done is either through is most importantly stressing the importance of preparing by showing them that wildfire predictions are only going to get worse, and the statistics of previous wildfires showing that it's most likely going to affect even cities like Cupertino when we haven't had a wildfire in the past, that it's definitely going to affect us in the next couple years or decades, meaning that we should start preparing now and not wait until it's too late. And also just spreading this information through emails, flyers, and in-person events where you could schedule like a community-wide cleaning up dead plant matter and preparing your house in the case of a wildfire. And next slide. And thanks for listening. Our email is at wayforchange@gmail.com, and just reach out to us if you have any questions. But most importantly, we just wanted to share this info since it's Preparedness Month and wildfire season has also started.
Great, thank you very much. And our next speaker is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, this is Rhoda. You asked for Lisa Warren, but I got the unmute.
I just got it too, late, but I'm on here too.
All right,
Okay,
All right, Lisa, go ahead.
Thanks, Rhoda. Okay, thank you. So just because I'm following Way, I just want to say that they're pretty dynamic, and I saw them speak at the city event last year on, it was preparedness. It was generally a bunch of organizations, but they were there and they spoke, and I'm proud of them, even though I don't know them. So thank you, girls and guys, if there's guys now. It was all girls then. Okay, so the real reason I'm here in oral communications tonight is because I feel the need to clarify my comments from the end of last week's Tuesday meeting. I think it may have been, at that late hour, easy to confuse my comments about what I was frustrated with and not so thrilled with, which I need to clarify. So here's what I want to say to staff and council, and that is thank you. Your process that evening and the evening before were difficult, but well done. There was more of a plan than there had been. There were, I won't make this lengthy. So what I'm trying to say is my comments at the end of that meeting were my frustration of the 2 hours of time between a little after 10 to a little after midnight, that I was under the impression from comments that there would be time for public to speak. And I had wanted to. And just the fact that it was only Zoom and we had very limited, at home for myself anyway, resources to see all the moving parts at once, it was frustrating. What you guys did and accomplished, staff and council, was not frustrating. I know it was a huge task, and I think you all did your job well. And I think what you ended up with was a better option than what you may have been given from the joint meeting between planning and housing commissions. They did a great job too, but I was pleased because there was action taken that reflected some of my hopes that I had shared. And I don't know if my sending that to you a couple times had anything to do with it. I think you would have done it on your own, quite honestly. But because the way you went about it and trying to select these sites, I think you did a good job, all of you. So I did not want it to be my little tizzy fit at the end of the meeting to be misinterpreted. So I'm just, for the record, straightening that out, and I hope you all understand. And maybe you didn't all think that. I just went away from there going, oh gosh, how are they going to take that? So that's it.
15 seconds.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next speaker is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi, good evening again. In 1844, Elisha Stevens led the first wagon train across the Sierra Nevada, and from 1848 until 1862, he resided in a small home in Cupertino near Blackberry Farm's playground, where Blackberry Farm's playground stands today. At the time, the creek was called Cupertino Creek, and it has since been renamed to Stevens Creek. Although there is a California historical landmark for his final home in Bakersfield, there is none for his first home. In the later 1800s, people would arrive by stagecoach and enjoy picnicking at the creek. Later, people arrived by train. The land now occupied by the golf course was an orchard. And later, it failed. Recognizing a business opportunity, the Nelsons purchased the property in the 1950s, built 2 homes along the driveway, and created a picnic business followed by swimming pools, the golf course, and the restaurant nightclub. In 1990, Cupertino citizens voted to tax themselves the utility tax to purchase the property for open space. The business would continue to be run by the city for 25 years in order to pay for the property. For accounting purposes, the Cupertino-run businesses would be tracked in an enterprise fund. Evidently, the picnic business lost money, and sometime after the area was renovated, only the golf course was tracked through an enterprise fund. Typically, cities track its businesses in enterprise funds, and I'm asking that we do this so that we can get some transparency for the pool picnics, profit and loss, along with other businesses. Golf continues to be run through an enterprise fund, but I think some expenses should not have been tracked there, such as various master plans, including the most recent project. For people who don't know the details, this makes golf performance look worse than it actually is. I would also like to know whether the golf course shares a water meter or PG&E with other amenities on site. And I would like you to know that in 2006, there was a plan to redo the watering system at the golf course and recondition an on-site cistern so that the golf course could be continued to be watered by on-site water. Additionally, there have been ponds on site that were specifically called out to be kept during the new plan. There was a side stream diversion that fed these ponds. The ponds had become a naturalized wildlife area. And there was an amazing cacophony of red-winged blackbirds out there at these ponds. The ponds unfortunately dried up. So I'd been asking for years for these to come back, and through a number of Parks and Rec managers, it seemed like that was going to happen. Over the years, it seems like there have been a number of trees that have died at the golf course, but it doesn't seem like they've been replaced. So it seems like the golf course, although it had been supporting, making money for the city at one point, has been somewhat neglected. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about Blackberry Farm, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. And we next go to our blue cards. There is a group of speakers under the subject Blackberry Farm Golf. They are Don Halsey, Judy Lomas, Mahul Dalakia, and I believe also Brooke Ezat. And so you'll have up to 8 minutes to speak on this with consolidation of 4 speaker cards. And so please feel free to go up to our speakers lectern and proceed once we have your, I believe you have a presentation from the city clerk's computer. So welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all council members that are here and those that are in from remote. There's a little history here. On August 16th, I presented to you all. That kind of got botched because I sent my slides into the wrong address, and so I had to do it without the assistance of slides. Now we've got the slides, and as you will see, it significantly makes clearer what's at stake here. You also are going to be able to get the slides because I sent them earlier to Kirsten, and so you'll get them as part of the record. So whatever you see here, you'll get your own copy later. But I will use a pointer here to highlight things so that I can get through quickly within those 8 minutes. I would like to know one thing first. One of the presenters who was here, but I kind of told him earlier than it was necessary, he went home, and I think he's in through, he's connected through Zoom or something, and that's Mihu? Is he in?
He's on Zoom, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So there'll be a point when I hand the baton off and it will not fall on the floor. That's good.
Okay, very good.
All right. The other presenter, both of these fellows live in Cupertino. He had to go to a dinner party, so he asked me to cover his slides. Okay? So here we go. The contact information for Rhoda Fry, who next door is here, as well as my own contact information, in case you ever have follow-up questions or anything. We're going to cover environmental aspects first, and then a quick thing on the revenues and costs. There's 641, got it. And then I'm going to switch over to Jim Lee, but I'll present for him, and he's going to say, how can we increase those revenues? And he'll show you a couple of ways. And then I will hand over to Miho, and he will cover kind of the family and children aspects of the course, which are perhaps the most important thing. Just depends on what your undergraduate degree was in, accounting or the humanities or whatever. But it's an important part for many people for why those courses, the Blackberry Farm course is in a topic today. And you don't need to listen to me at all because I live in Los Altos, okay? I'm not a Cupertino resident. I live close. I live near the Trader Joe's, and I go to Blackberry Farm all the time. And I play golf, so you don't need to listen to me at all because I'm biased, all right? But when I dug into it and I saw the analysis, I thought, wait a minute. Even if I never play golf again or never hike, the right decision for the council is becoming clear to me, so I wanted to provide information, some of what you have, or to just frame it to help you. Environmental aspects. It came up at the July meeting. One of the people in the audience at the first unit said, what about homeless? Well, I hadn't thought about homeless. But when she said that, I knew she was talking about, because I've played at other courses where homeless encampments are near the golf courses. So here's Blackberry Farm, as you can see. Here's the creek. And I emailed a couple of things to the city council about this, and they got that. And then later, they said, well, why don't you present? So I decided, present, and I did on the 16th, bungled that with the other things. But then Someone said, well, since you bundled it, how about presenting on the 6th? And I said I would do that. That's today. And then later someone said, well, why don't you present to the commissions? Well, I'll do that too. I'm kind of getting this one at a time here, and I may be taking things out of sequence, so my apologies if somebody's nose is out of joint. Here's the natural habitat option represented by the creek, the golf course, and there are different lengths here. This is a small riparian width in yellow, and a much bigger one if you extend it all the way across the golf course. So it's 130 on the low end, yellow, 430, 423. Those are the averages. So what about Los Lagos? That's in San Jose, and it straddles Coyote Creek. You can see it, and there's the golf course on both sides. You take a little bridge over. And the riparian width is narrow. Here's a narrow spot, here's a wide spot, whatever. And so you can look at that. And I looked, I said, so well, are there any encampments here? Well, you can do this at home, folks. Fire up Google Earth, just zoom to these things, and you can look in. I circled some. There's the trail, there's an encampment there. Here's another one. Here's another one. There are homeless people deserve our sympathy and support, but there are public health issues associated with trash, human waste, and all that, and these have been documented and are a concern. Here's San Jose Muni. I also play golf there. And here's the course. Here's the river. You can see the different riparian widths here. I did the red where it's big, the blue where it's small, 300 versus 160. I then zoomed in and said, where are the homeless? Well, here are the encampments. These are some close-ups. You can see the tents and whatnot. They occur where it's wide and not where it's not. Again, you can go onto Google tonight, find it out for yourself. So now I'll talk about revenue very quickly. The city commissioned a study of the feasibility, and you can find this on the city website. And they made a table in there, which is also available on the city website. I'll just point out very quick here, line 2. Here's the operating maintenance expenditures. It's much higher for the golf course and relatively cheap for open space or this natural habitat. What about the revenue? Well, it's just about nothing for the natural habitat and quite a lot for the golf course. So you can see those. And so net it out, revenue costs, about $8.2 million of loss for the golf course, but it's 10.2 for the natural habitat. So you're $2 million to the good, just right out of the gate, right? So we go now to our next topic. This is Jim Lee presenting, or his clone. Jim is going to point out there are ways to increase that revenue, which I think should interest you all. If you look at the cost of Sunken Gardens, which is a golf course in Sunnyvale, 9-hole, short, they charge 28% more than we do. These are snips that I have taken from the web. You can go there yourself. Okay. Prune Ridge is another competitor. You could consider them that. I think they are privately owned. What do they charge? Well, they are $22, so that actually works out to be 22% more than Blackberry Farm. And Deep Cliff is an 18-hole course, so it's kind of comparable, kind of not, because it's a short course, which is good, but if you're going to train kids to play or something like that, maybe a 9-hole is a little better. And they have a 9-hole rate, but it's almost the same as the 18. And that's 44% more. You don't need a Stanford MBA to tell you that you could raise your rates, and I'm not a Stanford MBA, okay? So Jim says, okay, what if we just kick them up 25%? Just to pull some, what does that do? Well, it gives you an extra $2.3 million.
Just do a time check. You have about a minute left.
Got it. That does that. Other courses, we could put in $500,000 and duplicate some courses already offered. And here is the young kids playing on this course. on Blackberry. They did a whole bunch of rounds this past year. And if you look at what we have for golf around here, lots of golf courses, but only a few are short 9-holers. So if you want kids and families to get started, we have a precious asset here. We ask you to keep it open. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next blue card is from Thomas Shi. Welcome, Thomas. Or Shu?
Yes. Yeah, my name is Thomas Su, HSU. I'm the internist in Cupertino. I have practiced since 1985. I live at 7565 Default Drive. I got this friendly courtesy notice on the 25th. The deadline is this Friday. They said the tree I have blocked the sign here, and one of the tree is the jujube tree or the Chinese state trees, and it kind of blocked the sign, blocked the sign. The sign was hung on the light post. So I did a measurement. Actually, the light post is 10 feet from the curb side, and I took the picture. I showed to the Mr. Marvin Aguera. He said the light post is belong to the power company, has eminent domain, so they can play anywhere they want. So they said that. And so I said, 10 feet away from the property. He said, it doesn't matter. The sign had to be hung up here. Then I said, why don't you make a compromise? Okay, this is still my property. I can put a show sign. The show sign in Cupertino is everywhere. For example, this is another show sign here. Very show sign. It's just a non-parking the first and third Wednesday, no parking. Very simple sign. You can install the show sign right over here, and it serves two purposes. One, it saves the fruit tree. My grandson really loves it. And also, clean the carbon dioxide, produce oxygen for the Cupertino city. That's a mutual benefit. So I think it's a reasonable suggestion that if you can move a small show post right over here, move this sign here, you can save the tree and even block the people going through the street. I think it's very reasonable. And so I did consult with the ex-mayor, Gilbert, and he said, come to the council, talk to the mayor and the council member. Maybe they give a consideration.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Shi.
Thank you.
So at this point, I don't have any further new cards, and it seems like we don't have any email comments, so let's go ahead and conclude oral communications. At this time, we are on to the part of our agenda having to do with reports by council and staff. Item number 3 is a set of brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements. And I'll just remind my colleagues that this is brief on the order of a minute or so each. And so I'll go on our Zoom function for any requests to speak on this item number 3 from council. And first we have Councilmember Wei.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So briefly, I think a lot of us attended the Farmers Market open house, which I think the residents are very happy. And the Indian Independence Parade in Fremont, it was a hot day, but I think it's worth it to celebrate Independence, Indian Independence Day. I attended the Asian American Community for Involvement's Better Together Fire Chat and Fundraiser. Is really a very good organization that takes care of a lot of immigrants, especially the newly newly immigrants from a lot of countries. And so I'm just going to go to one more. It's the Silicon Valley's Clean Energies Electrifying Silicon Valley seminar webinar. It's never too late to learn, and I think we should really strive. And Cupertino is a great forefront city to strive for clean energy, clean air. So that was a very good seminar, and I learned quite a bit of things from it. I'll leave the rest for the rest of the council members.
Great, thanks, Councilmember Wei. Next we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll continue on that. On the 27th was the Lawrence Midi groundbreaking per se, the meeting there with Joseph Midian and Chappie Jones joining us. Great. And then the mayor had the augmented reality workshop at De Anza College on the 28th. Next comments that I would make, just the mayor might want to speak about the coastal cleanup day that's coming on the 17th. And then just a couple comments on the speakers items. I would say that I think we're going to need a Blackberry Farm study session. Let them know that I think we're going to be needing something like that to look at what they've put out there for us. And Thomas Shue's tree and sign issue. Hopefully our new city manager will have somebody from Public Works work with him. Sounds like an interesting idea of putting the sign on a sign post rather than on the existing light pole that is obscured. So with that, I hope we're addressing everything. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. And I don't see further hands raised on the Zoom function, but let me look on Vice Mayor Chow. Did you want to speak on this item?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think I also attended the Indian Independence Day parade at Fremont. And the 21st, I attended the farmers market opening. It was great. I wish the city could have announced it to the residents that the farmers market has moved to De Anza College. On the 27th, I attended a annual fundraising by Xing Xing Foundation. And the 27th also, we have a Lawrence Midi groundbreaking. I arrived late, but I got the mug and really well designed. And the 28th, I attended the Tianjin Qigong Academy. They have a World Peace Ceremony, which they have every year. And then in the afternoon, I also attended the Augmented Reality Workshop hosted by Mayor Darcy Paul, and it was great fun with the Historical Society. I think we could really use this to scan a lot of 3D artifacts. And I would also like to know what's the process for citizens if they wish to appeal for a sign to be moved to a different location. And I hope that the city manager could get back to us on that.
Great. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
I know what yeah, it's the mute. I think I got it. Okay, so I also participated in the 75th India Independence Day celebration and got to ride in a 1955 Thunderbird convertible with Councilmember Wei, and which was driven by the owner. It was really incredible. The Farmers Market Open House, I want to thank Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Willie for their work on the subcommittee for the relocation of the Farmers Market to De Anza College, and Mayor Paul for coordinating the Farmers Market event, and to the resident guests and student volunteers, Kelly and I believe Carolyn, assisted, who helped me decorate and got voluntold to help give out cookies and drinks to the visitors. It was a really good event, and I really appreciated it. Also on August 28th, I participated in the Augmented Reality Workshop, and I stayed for the afternoon and got to get my video done. It was really a really cool event, and I hope the mayor speaks a little bit more about it. And on the 26th, Mayor Paul, Vice Mayor Chow, Councilmember Wei, and myself welcomed the student delegation from Taiwan at Community Hall here, and we had a really interesting panel Q&A discussion, and they were a terrific group of students. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. And, actually, my colleagues have covered everything that we went over that I had to talk about, but I did want to thank everyone for their excellent efforts, particularly the subcommittee, which I think you'll probably hear an update comprised of Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Willie on all of their efforts to help get the farmers market located from Memorial Park to De Anza College. And a great thank you to our De Anza College partners as well. I think that we're having really wonderful interactions with our various jurisdictions due to the hard work of our council members. So thank you very much for that. The Lawrence Midi annexation ceremony did take place on that same following weekend, I should say. And it's 7 acres on the eastern side of Cupertino in a severely park deficient area because historically the Rancho Rinconada neighborhood was part of the unincorporated county area that was annexed into Cupertino in the 1990s. And county basically just didn't make any parks. So we opened up a park, I think in the early 2010s, around 2011, I believe, Sterling Barnhart. That's roughly the size of a couple of home parcels there. So it's not really large, but 7 acres is really just a great get for Cupertino. And so Supervisor Simidian spoke. The county worked really well with us to sell us the land, and it was actually inside of San Jose, even though it was on the western side of Lawrence Expressway. And so LAFCO in San Jose had to get involved with the annexation of it. So we had a nice ceremony there. It's good to keep that stewardship going on. Augmented reality workshop. There's a lot to say about it, but it was just an amazing confluence of getting the new technology in there and getting all age groups and all socioeconomic ranges the opportunity to go ahead and partake of this new technology. And it's actually the Chinese Historical Society Museum of America located in San Francisco that has national grant funding to try to use this technology to adapt to museum delivery. So you can take a 3D scan using your iPhone or even any regular smartphone of an object and then therefore put it on the internet, and then people can basically move it around in 3D and examine it. So you can imagine how museums can use this kind of technology such that their patrons can go into the museum, maybe scan a QR code, and basically look at artifacts through their phones essentially. So great technology, and it was made accessible to regular everyday people through signing up for this free workshop. With regard to one of the public speakers regarding the signage, I'll go ahead and reiterate my fellow colleagues who had indicated a desire to follow up. The speaker did speak with me beforehand, and I did, sir, I did email your email to our city manager. So I hope that there is good follow up there as well. So at this point, we're on to item 4, which is committee reports, and this is our official committee assignments, which are assigned at the end of each calendar year. And so we have various representations on boards and committees throughout Santa Clara Valley. And so this is our opportunity, a couple of minutes each, to give our summaries from when we last met as a city council, and that was August 16th at a regular meeting. And so ever since August 17th going forward to today, September 6th, if there are any reports for committee assignments, my fellow council members, if you would care to provide them, this is your opportunity. And Councilmember Moore, your hand is still raised, but I don't know if that's from before. Did you want to provide your committee update at this time?
Sure, I will go first. Just for this week, I will be chairing the VTA PAC on Thursday at 4 p.m., but what we had was the audit committee meeting on August 22nd, and you'll see in our agenda packet here today some of the fruits of the work that we've been doing on the audit committee and with our budget subcommittee, which are items 11, 12, and 13, where we've brought the monthly treasurer's report and our accounts payable reporting in line with the Cupertino Municipal Code and the state law. So if you go through this agenda packet, please read the staff reports, and there's a lot of new information that's being presented, and we're doing this now monthly. So we won't have the amount of accounts payable that we were seeing previously, which sometimes could be delayed as much as 6 months before we would be reviewing them. So we're getting those on a monthly basis. So it should be a much smoother process moving forward. We needed to continue the budget format review and the budget format review and there was another item which I'm not seeing right now, but the account. It's escaping me right now, but it's there's another item when we get to the audit item. I'll remember it, but we had to continue the items because we have now a really full schedule and work plan for audit. Previously, about 3-4 years ago, it was only meeting about 5 times per year. When we switched to having the monthly reports, we now need to have 12 of these meetings, and they can become pretty lengthy. On the plus side, inflation is coming down, and our account has appeared to have been increasing. So we were at 151 million in our Chandler account, and it dropped down to about 148 million, and it's coming back. We're at around 149 million now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you. Didn't have committee assignment, but Silicon Valley Clean Energy has been notifying, the customers. I've been seeing the emails about the outages, trying to also get people to do their EV charging in the off-peak hours. One other comment, though, I'm thinking, Mayor, that I didn't hear a report out about our closed session yet. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. That's much appreciated. Let me go ahead and continue on this item here. So we're on reports by council and staff, and then just to signpost it to our city attorney, I'll go ahead and report out after item number 7 and before our consent calendar on closed session. Thank you for the reminder, Councilmember Willie. Councilmember Way, you're next on the committee reports.
Yes, as a representative to Valley Water, I attended the Valley Water's Water Summit, and it really has very good information of current and future projects to really secure our water resources. So that was a very good meeting. So, and I would like to maybe later on report on the Valley Water's recommendations.
Great, thanks very much, Councilmember Way. And next we have Vice Mayor Chow. Do you have any committee reports this session? No? Okay. Yes, Councilmember Moore, did you want to follow on anything?
Yes, I've located the correct term for what I could not recall. It's the unassigned fund balance and use of one-time funds policy, which has been continued to our next regular meeting, and I think this is a pretty important one because we were discussing this fairly recently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Next we are on I'll go ahead and report out for my VTA representation on the board, where I represent the 5 West Valley communities of Cupertino, Campbell, Los Gatos, Montessorino, and Saratoga. I'm also on the SSTPO committee, which stands for Safety, Security, and Transit Planning. And so we met as a committee on the 18th of August, and talked about various issues that have been confronting our local transit agency with regard to safety and security and the transit planning. One thing that I will report out here in this brief amount of time is that VTA is actually in the midst of purchasing a new fleet of buses. I believe it's something on the order of 92 or 98? 90-something buses that are hybrid diesel electric. And so at this point, we can all feel the effects of climate change. And so I'm very happy for my own part that we have the VIA shuttle in Cupertino, and that we can have a little bit more autonomy over, indicating that we are interested in buying electric vehicles. So that's something that, we're working on the VTA side. The board meeting for VTA was on the 1st, and so that was just a few days ago. The audit committee, as Councilmember Moore mentioned, met on August 22nd, and yes, it is true. We have done, just an incredible amount of work under Councilmember Moore's stewardship as chair this year and previously. So thank you for that. That should do it for committee reports. Item number 5 is our report on subcommittee assignments. And so we have various subcommittees that the council, comprised of 2 of the council members, have. And so this is an opportunity for the subcommittees to report out on their activities or propose perhaps a future agenda item to have a more extensive report. So let me ask my fellow council members. Councilmember Moore, your hand is still raised. Did you want to report out on a subcommittee assignment or assignments?
Yes. So Councilmember Willie and myself are on the City Hall subcommittee. Our first meeting was August 2nd. We went over the reason for the project and a list of future projects. We met a second time on Thursday, September 1st. This meeting with Councilmember Willie and myself went over the seismic design issues with Public Works Director Matt Morley and Susan Michael, our Capital Improvement Programs Manager. This included a deep dive report by Susan Michael regarding the 2005-6 structural analysis review of the 1965 and 1986 design and construction, the 2011 and 2012 analyses, the 2014 City Hall alternate study structural evaluation, and the 2021 seismic evaluation. There is a web page devoted to the City Hall project. Please visit it because it is packed with information on the history of the building and the seismic design issue from the 1980s. Our next meeting is September 22nd regarding the EOC, the cost drivers and location options. Then October 13th, the programming space planning. October 27th, we'll address parking, and we should wrap up in early November to have funding and recommendations for council. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the timeline, Councilmember Moore. And are there any other subcommittee assignments to report out on? Councilmember Willie, I see your hand is raised. Welcome.
Yeah, Councilman Moore, excellent summary on that. The one that I would simply add to that one is the consideration that we're doing about other potential sites for the EOC, which would then reduce the requirements for City Hall directly. Now that we have a one-story existing structure on Torrey Avenue that we're going to be looking at also. Other subcommittee is the farmers market, and as been said earlier tonight, the move to De Anza College, just fantastic. It's allowing the farmers market to grow. It was confined at the upper parking lot and senior center lots at Memorial Park. So now it can actually continue to grow. I would also like to say, though, that we now know that the Creekside Farmers Market is constrained also. As I understand it, the church parking lot is now not being able to be utilized. So I would hope that we can add the Creekside Farmers Market to this subcommittee so that I think we have a good chance of helping that farmers market that is so important to our community. Vice Mayor might want to make some more comments, but Mayor, if you can figure out how we would add that to the subcommittee, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Woolley. And to that point, I'll just let the public know that we do have a precedent that's being set tonight for that. You did make a subcommittee request at our last special meeting. I believe that was last Tuesday regarding an item that is later on in our agenda tonight. And so I would imagine that we could bring this back, this request that you have right now to expand the subcommittee regarding the farmers market, to add another reach out to a different farmers market on a future council agenda similar to what we're looking at later tonight. So I don't see any further hands raised. Vice Mayor Chow, did you have any report out? Okay, so I'll go ahead, and with regard to the subcommittee assignments, I don't have subcommittee assignments that I'll go ahead and report out on. And so our next item on the agenda is item 6. That is the city manager update. But before we do that, I do want to actually extend more kudos to our subcommittee for the West Coast Farmers Market and finding that just incredible space for it. Yes, we did have a ribbon cutting ceremony for their reopening at De Anza College, and thank you to Councilmember Moore. Really did respond to my request to take the laboring oar for making sure that ceremonially it went well. We were able to do all that in the weekend before our new city manager started, or at least the weekend before the weekend, because the weekend right before we had the Lawrence Midi annexation ceremony on one day, and then following the augmented reality workshop. So, and I believe that you did go to the ceremony for Lawrence Midi, so it was great seeing you there. And so without any further ado, we'll go to item number 6, which is the city manager update. Pamela.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Pamela Wu, your new city manager. Thank you for the opportunity, my very first update to the city and the residents to the Cupertino community. So during my very short week, last week, I have several highlights to provide to you. First of all, I wanted to again thank Council for your hard work and your dedication for closing out the housing element site inventory last week, 2 long nights, but we got it done. And also just to kind of wrap up, because this is a short week, staff is still trying to consolidate the information on the RENA comparison, the new maps, the revised presentation, and also the information that was committed to provide to you. It should be done and posted on the housing element website by the end of this week. So that's a commitment that staff will have, and please let us know if there's any questions that you may have. And to follow up some of the milestone following this housing element, that is going to go to a number of different advisory committees. So on September 16th, the item will go to the Community Engagement Plan Strategic Advisory Committee. That's a mouthful. And then it's going to go to the a separate committee to discuss the AFFH issue on September 27. In October, the Housing Commission will get a chance to focus on the policies. And also in late October, we will start doing the preparing for the EIR. So the City Environmental Review Committee will focus on that effort. And then late October, November-ish, the draft housing element should be available on the city website for the City Council and also the members of public to review. So that's closing up on the housing element effort. And to bring you some also good news is that the Public Works Department is launching a survey, an online survey at Engage Cupertino on Thursday, September 8th. And this will be open until October 9th. And there will be followed with a virtual community meeting on Thursday, September 15th, and also a pop-up in-person event in front of Cupertino Library on September 17th. And this is really to revitalize our Memorial Park. So we want to get the public and also the members of the community to engage and also to provide feedback. So we're looking forward to have all of these information online to be filled up and also come and talk to us at these pop-up events. With that said, I would also like to provide an update on the Economic Development Committee. Understood that the council has provided some direction in the past, so staff will schedule a study session on this effort to let you know where we are, what is coming, probably in the early October study session. So that's coming forward. And last but not least, I don't want to steal Acting Director Sanders' presentation following mine. It's hard to believe that we're wrapping up summer, but we're also marching into the holiday seasons. So I want to give a little preview that the director is going to share with you a series of holiday events that's just going to light up the community. So that's my report for the week.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much. Typically, we don't take questions, but Vice Mayor Chow, you have, if you have a very brief question or comment, please feel free. Okay,
really appreciate the update about what's upcoming for the housing element. That is so great. But the draft housing element will not come to the council before it's sent out to public review.
We can discuss that. So if we do want to bring it back, it's going to delay the process of going to HCD.
Yeah, so right now it's going to go to the housing commission. Right?
No, this is not what I meant by a very brief comment or question. So, and we certainly can't have a discussion about the housing element in the middle of a city manager review. Okay. So let's go ahead and table that. As of the last regular council meeting on August 16th, we started a series of updates from our departments. Today we have the Parks and Recreation, or Recreation and Community Services as we call it, department with an update. We have, I believe, our acting director of that department, Rochelle Sander, to provide the update. And Madam City Manager, did you want to make the introduction there?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I would love to introduce Rochelle Sander, the Acting Director for Parks and Recreation. As Rochelle calls herself the happy people, she's here to give you a happy presentation. Thank you, Rochelle.
Good evening. We are the happy people, that's for sure. Let me share my screen. All right. Everyone see that?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rochelle Sander, and I am the Acting Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for the opportunity to share an overview and update on the Parks and Recreation Department. The Parks and Recreation Department consists of 29 full-time staff, 50 plus volunteers, and in the busy season, over 100 part-time staff. Currently, the department's director position is vacant. Staff in the department are also liaisons to 4 commissions and 2 boards. The department oversees the Parks and Recreation, Library, Teen, and Arts and Culture Commissions, along with the Youth Activity Board and the Senior Advisory Board. Staff works with the multiple commissions on work program items and projects such as the Poet Laureate, Artist Awards, Parks Master Plan, Strategic Plan, Park Capital Improvement Projects, community funding, teen events, and much more. The department offers a variety of classes, camps, and activities for all ages, covering subjects such as fitness, education, nature, aquatics, dance, art, theater, sports, music, and much more. Many of our outdoor programs are coordinated in Cupertino's beautiful parks. And due to Council's help in making Lawrence Midi a reality, there's a lot more to look forward to in the way of future programming at this site. The department oversees and programs rentals at Quinlan Community Center, the Cupertino Senior Center, Community Hall, McClellan Ranch Preserve, Blackberry Farm Golf Course, Cupertino Teen Center, Blackberry Farm Pools, the Cupertino Sports Center, Monte Vista Recreation Center, Portal, Creekside, and Wilson Park buildings. 5 picnic areas are also available for rent throughout the Parks and Recreation Department at Memorial, Portal, Linda Vista, and most recently, thanks to City Council's approval of the fee schedule, Creekside Park. At McClellan Ranch Preserve, in-ground, above-ground, and ADA garden beds are also all available for rent. The department schedules and permits youth sports group rentals of 7 city parks and 9 elementary and middle school fields. The athletic field use policy and the schedule of play for these fields is available on the city website. In 2022, with 52 weeks in a year, the Parks and Recreation Department ran and supported over 60 events. 10 of those events are community-wide festivals and 30 are large community events put on by the city. In 2023, the department will be bringing back the summer events program, which spreads events across multiple parks in the city. Some of the events seen on the slide are the Big Bunny 5K, Movies in the Park, Hidden Treasures, Concerts in the Park, the Cupertino Campout, Tree Lighting, Monster Mash, Bobatino, the Pooch Plunge, and 4th of July. The following events have returned in person to fill the fall holiday season. Pooch Plunge, which is such a popular event that staff had to add an additional time slot because of how fast the first 3 sold out. Bobatino, an event for 8th to 12th grades focused on mental health. The Volunteer Fair, which showcases many volunteer opportunities for service hours, internships, or a chance to make a difference and connect with others. Pizza and Politics, a political forum coordinated with a tri-city team by youth for youth that seeks to encourage youth and teen civic engagement. Harvest Day, which celebrates the harvest season and educates about local birds, nature, ecology, and wildlife. Hidden Treasures, where you can find the best knickknacks, jewelry, household items, plants, and much more, run by a hardworking group of senior center volunteers. Monster Mash, a Halloween bash for children under 12 years of age and their families. Tree Lighting, a family fun event where we light up the tree and welcome a special guest. Breakfast with Santa, where you'll find North Pole pancakes, pictures with Santa, music, and crafts for the whole family. Signing Santa, an event for deaf or hard of hearing children and their families to spend time with Santa, who will communicate through sign language. To round out the end of the year, there are also Santa visits where you can register to have Santa and his elf visit your home. For more information on all recreation offerings, please visit cupertino.org/recreation. To register for classes, rent picnic areas, as a member of the Sports Center, rent a tennis court, please visit regforrec.org. For more information, you can also find our rec schedules and the 50+ scene. These can be found online or in print at our main recreation facilities. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Acting Director Sander. And we'll go ahead and extend our kudos to you as well as to our city manager for that incredible first week. I don't want, the comment about a very enthusiastic desire to speak more of the housing element to be taken or misinterpreted. We did an amazing job. I think I can very much say that without having that placed on notice on the agenda. And it was a lot of work. That was your first and second day of the job, in fact, as city manager. And essentially, we were tasked with going through the entirety of the city and identifying sites that could be going and having significantly more housing. So thank you very much to my colleagues for all that work. The work continues. I'm going to go ahead, as promised, and make the report out on our closed session, which happened immediately preceding. Yes, Madam City Clerk.
I apologize for the interruption. We
Yes.
do have one member of the public with their hand raised for the last item.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and refer this to our city attorney, Mr. City Attorney Jensen. We don't typically take public comment on reports by council and staff. What are our legal requirements here? I'm willing to go ahead and do it, but it's just not something that we typically do. Is that something that we should entertain as a member of the public commenting on one of our reports by council and staff?
So the reports, the items discussed in the reports are not on the agenda. They're intended to be short updates, and so the subjects they addressed could be addressed in oral communication. So there's generally not a separate side to comment on them set aside. So it would not be consistent with our normal order to take comments now, but of course council always has the discretion to depart from that order of business.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. So in due deference and respect to the member of the public that would like to speak, and also in the same to my council colleagues, I'll go ahead and try to keep these in our relatively limited amount of time left in this term for meetings as basically updates that we don't have the discussion-oriented aspect of it. And so to the extent that we have future desire for commentary, I'm going to go ahead and not take that with regard to follow-up questions and comments on the various ones of these updates and reports. And so I'm open to discussion with regard to how that goes ahead and proceeds. But if there's that desire, I would like to have that agendized for a future meeting. And so we can go ahead and consider how we handle this group of items if so desired. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and keep with our past practice and not take public comment on these items under reports by council and staff. And I do see that your hand is raised, Vice Mayor. Did you want to make a procedural point?
Councilmember Willie has his hand up.
So Councilmember Willie, you have your hand raised. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say that with regard to the discussion on the various items here, if you have a procedural point, please go ahead and make it at this time.
I actually have a question for Rachel.
For Rochelle?
Rochelle.
Again, with regard to the updates by the department heads on the department, it's really the 5-minute update from the departments. So we're typically not opening it up to questions and discussion. However, if we want to do that in the future, I'm happy to have an agendized item to talk about that. So if that's workable, let's go ahead and have that. And I'm sure that you can email your question as well to Rochelle. And if we want to put that onto the future agenda, please feel free to do so. And we can incorporate that into for example, the written materials after the meeting, or we can go ahead, if you so desire, to try to include that in our next agendized meeting materials. So thanks very much for the inquiry, but we'll go on to our consent calendar at this time. Those are items 8 through 15, and I think it actually speaks really well for the item itself, because the presentation was so well done that, of course, it motivates various other questions in follow-up to that. So the consent calendar is everything from 8 through 15, and if there's any member of the public or our council that would like to pull an item from consent, this is your opportunity to do so. And so, Madam City Clerk, are there any requests to do so at this point?
Yes, Mayor, we have a request from the public to pull 11, 14, and 15.
Okay, so 11 is the consideration of accounts payable for the periods ending July 11th, 18th, 25th, and August 1st of this year. And did you say 14 and 15, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, 14 and 15.
And so 14 is the consideration of accepting $1 million grant from the state of California for the construction of the Jollyman all-inclusive playground project, and 15 is a consideration of accepting a $5 million in grant funding from the state for renovation of the McClellan Road Bridge over Stevens Creek. Are there any other requests from my colleagues to pull any items on the consent calendar? I do see one hand raised from the public, Peggy Griffin. Peggy, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak. Did you want to go ahead and pull any items that have not already been pulled from the consent calendar at this time?
No, I requested 11, 14, and 15.
11, 14, and 15. Okay, thanks very much, Peggy. And so let's go ahead and move back to consent. May I have a motion for items 9, 10, 12, and 13 as recommended in the agenda? And so, Councilmember Moore, you have your hand raised.
So moved.
Moore moves. Would anyone like to second Councilmember Moore's motion? And seeing no, Councilmember Willie, you have your hand.
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, Moore moves, Willie seconds. I don't see any hands raised for further discussion. And so, Madam City Clerk, if you could please conduct a roll call vote on consent items. Was it 9, 10, 12, and 13?
Yes.
Okay, as recommended in the agenda.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Sorry, aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. And again, let me go ahead and go to, and I think I might have misspoke the reiteration of the motion. The items that were pulled were, was it 8, 11, and 14? Is that correct? 11, 14, and
11,
15.
14, and 15. Yes.
Okay, so I needed to include 8, but the motion itself actually did have that, and I'll confirm with the movement. So 11, 14, and 15 were accepted from your motion, correct, Councilmember Moore?
I believe so.
Yes. Okay. So we'll go ahead. Actually, you know what? If we want to go ahead and make this procedurally accurate, right? So we'll go ahead and just, if you can make the motion to accept consent calendar items 8, 9, 10, 12, and 13, that would be appreciated again.
And again, so moved.
So moved. Councilmember Willie, would you like to second that again?
Yes.
Okay, I will not reiterate the motion here. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote on this motion?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. We are at consent calendar item 11 that was pulled, and so I think we could probably go to our member of the public to give us some context as to the request itself. And so, Peggy, would you like to give us a brief word regarding item 11 and the reason for your request to pull it?
I pulled it because I wanted to draw attention to this wonderful event. I have been very frustrated with the inconsistent flow of the accounts payable. They weren't in order. They would come in big glumps of like 6 months. It was pretty bad. And I wanted to thank the council and the audit committee for this new format. As a member of the public, it is reassuring that these statements have been reviewed by the audit committee first before it comes to council. The more eyes, the better. I also would like to thank the council and staff for providing these statements in a timely, monthly manner. It's easier to follow and review. This is refreshing change, and it increases the financial oversight and transparency. Thank you all for the hard work of making this happen. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Peggy. It's always great to hear positive things from the public, and it's certainly, as a member of the audit committee, but under the chairship of Councilmember Moore, it has indeed been a lot of work. Yeah, thank you to staff as well for working with us to bring it to this point. So let me, if there aren't any comments from council or the public, take a motion on item 11 as recommended in the agenda. May I have that? I don't see any hands raised, but we'll go by a vocal move. Councilmember Moore.
So moved.
And Councilmember Way, would you like to second?
Second, please.
Very good. So we have a motion and second from Moore and Way, respectively. Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. We're on to item number 14, which, as stated before, is the consideration of accepting $1 million in grant funding for the Jollyman All-Inclusive Playground. Let's go back to our member of the public who pulled these items. Item number 14. Peggy, would you like to give us a word as to the reason for pulling item 14?
Yes, I had a question. Does the budget project include the improvements to the bathroom to make it accessible? And I hope, as part of the citywide park planning, that all the park bathrooms get upgraded and refurbished before additional features are added. Clean, accessible bathrooms are essential to ensuring everyone can access and enjoy our parks. So does this include the bathrooms in this project? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Peggy. And I do see that our Director of Public Works has arrived at the dais, Matt Morley. And I'm sure between Director Morley and City Manager Wu and Acting Director Sander, we can get this question with regard to the bathrooms, not just at Jollyman, but the other parks throughout the city answered. Although I will say that this is noticed for the Jollyman project, and so perhaps if you'd like to confine your answer to that and direct the public as to follow on the more broad bathroom issue throughout the parks, that would be much appreciated. Director Morley.
Certainly, thank you very much, Mayor. We do have a project that is a separate project for the bathroom at Jollyman Park that is included in the CIP, and a project that we are currently working on in parallel with the all-inclusive playground. So those will be sort of parallel consecutive projects that are completed there. So yes, the facility will have that.
Great, thank you very much, Director Morley. And I take it that the member of the public can email you directly, or the city manager at respectively Eric M. or Pamela W. at Cupertino.org to follow on the more broad-based questions. Is that correct?
Matt M. at Cupertino.org would be better.
I'm sorry. Different Morley.
That's right. But yes, anytime.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Morley. Okay, so let's go ahead and entertain a, well, actually, we have Councilmember Moore with a hand raised. Councilmember Moore, did you want to have a follow-on question or a commentary on this item?
Yes, I do have a question. I was asked by a couple members of the public about that bathroom, so I appreciate the question. And it was the cost. And I was wondering if there could be, if it's within this item, but I'm curious, and this is coming from the public, why does that bathroom cost so much? The ADA bathroom that'll be at Jollyman.
Okay, so maybe we can, let me think about how this is, well, it's a budgetary item, right? Accepting $1 million for the Jollyman Park. And so let's speak within the parameters of the item. Can you speak to the cost of the bathroom that is associated with the all-inclusive Jollyman playground improvements?
Certainly. So this project is a relocation of the restroom. So the restroom will be relocated closer to the all-inclusive playground to make sure that it's accessible to those users. It also includes significant utility work in order to bring those utilities to the restroom, which is a significant portion of the cost.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much. Cogent answers, and let's just go ahead and entertain that motion for this item. This is item number 14. The recommended action is to adopt resolution number 22-115, accepting $1 million in grant funding from the state for the construction of this all-inclusive playground. Would anyone like to go ahead and make that motion? And I don't see hands raised, but I see Councilmember Woolley now has a hand raised. Councilmember Woolley.
So moved. Great to have a all-inclusive playground.
Great. And Vice Mayor Chow, you're indicating?
Happy to second.
Okay, great. We have a motion by Willie and a second by Chow. I don't see further hands raised at this time. And so, Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct that roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. And thank you, Director Matt Morley, for being here on the dais to help us answer these questions for item 14. Now, item 15, and I think, Director Morley, you're still here for the reason that this is also a public works related project, is again considering accepting the $5 million in grant funding from the state for the renovation of the McClellan Road Bridge over Stevens Creek. The creek itself, not the boulevard. And so let's go ahead and take this to our member of the public that pulled the item. Once again, Peggy Griffin, did you want to give a brief word as to the reason for pulling item number 15?
Yes, I had a question again. If approved by council, when would this project start and how does it fit into the city work plan? Is there a time constraint for the grant? Must it be done by a certain time? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Peggy. Time constraints on the grant. Any known time constraints at this point, Director Morley?
This is one of those unusual grants where there is no time constraint, which is a nice thing. We are looking for additional grant dollars to round out the full project budget, as we noted in the staff report. So we're anxious to move forward with it. We're certainly a couple of years away from construction, as there is a significant design element associated with the project.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Director Morley. And we have a question from Vice Mayor Chow or a comment?
Yeah, it's great that we are getting this $5 million grant. However, when I first heard about that, this item has not been on the Public Works even unfunded project list. So does this mean we should revise our CIP plan for this year to include maybe feasibility study or design for this project? That wasn't in our plan. And I see that the total cost is $7.5 million. So if we don't get this extra funding, then I assume the city would still proceed with the project? Or do we have any flexibility to move this funding to other projects? Because I didn't quite understand the section where it says that the last sentence, the city intends to seek other funding opportunities to cover the remaining cost. As these funds are provided to the city without restrictions, it could serve as a significant match for other funding opportunities. I don't quite understand the last part. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in unusual times in that there was a plethora of dollars that came our direction, opportunities that came our direction this year, and staff took the opportunity to jump on that. That meant bringing up some projects that were sort of not on the radar right now, and this was a big project that aligned with some of the needs. So we applied for it and noticed the council subsequently that we were doing so and were successful in that effort. To your question on whether we should update our unfunded needs, I think is the question. I think that's warranted. We're working on, for example, an effort right now to understand what our facilities needs are citywide, so that the council has a full perspective on that. We'll incorporate that discussion into our CIP program starting in about January when we bring the CIP forward. Note that that's much earlier than we have in the past, so you have a real opportunity to dig into the CIP and understand it. With respect to additional funding opportunities, for bridges, there are a lot of funding opportunities. We have our eyes on state and federal funds that may round this out. and supply the additional dollars to fund this project. So other sources are out there. They're just making their call for projects in the next month or so, and so we'll be applying for that. We'll certainly send an item of interest through to the council as we make the application so that you're aware of the process along the way. And then with respect to projects, you always have the opportunity to direct us to move in a different direction. So with this particular project, if there was not significant other funding sources and the council's decision was not to add city funds to the project, we could certainly move in that direction as well.
Sorry, don't quite understand. So by accepting this $5 million grant, we are committing to this project, or we are not? We could use the fund for other projects too, that we also consider infrastructure project.
These funds were awarded specifically for the McClellan Road Bridge because it met the qualifications or requirements of the dollars that came through the state. So there isn't an option at this point to change the use of those dollars.
So we are committing to this project.
That's correct.
So do we need to start with the design in order to seek additional funding? I thought a lot of times we were told we need to start designing so that we can get grant.
We're much more competitive with the shovel-ready project, yes. I think for this project, because state dollars are coming essentially now, we'll be moving on those as well. Our expectation is that we'll have full funding for this project in due course, and we're very positive on that fact. So our ultimate goal is to fund this project completely with other people's money and to get it over the goal line that way.
That's awesome. And we also have the Stevens Creek Boulevard Bridge that also needs to be updated, right? It's also 120 years old.
It is also as old. It has some challenges as well, but not nearly the challenges as McClellan.
So you are planning also to apply funding for that?
We have our eyes on that as a bridge that has needs as well, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah.
Great, great questions, Vice Mayor, and thank you for the responses, Director Morley. I think that it's a good educational process. Like you say, it's a brave new world, and so a lot of these questions, I'm sure, are being asked not just on an ongoing but also ubiquitous basis across the state at this time. So let's go ahead and entertain a motion for this. Would anyone like to move the recommended action at this time? I do see a couple of hands raised, so perhaps that's a bit premature. Councilmember Moore and then Councilmember Willie, did you want to have further discussion or further follow-up questions on this? I believe Councilmember Willie was ahead of you. Okay. So Councilmember Willie, you have been graciously acceded to. You actually show up second on my Zoom function, but if you wanted to make your comments or ask questions first, Councilmember Moore has put you first in line.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So question for Director Morley. I think it's always good to have a picture, and so, when I read this and in the agenda, the bridge over Stevens Creek, and I don't remember that aspect, and yet he clarified it here that it's a bridge over the creek. But still, if they did have a possible picture, I mean, $7 million, what is it needed? In our CIP manual, something similar, Regnart Road needs repairs, and we can see, oh yeah, in the pictures, why. Do we have a picture of this? And then the more pressing question, is it a safety issue? Because it kind of sounded like if the council decided not to move forward or something, but is it a safety issue, kind of like the Regnar Road? Could you fill in those two items? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pull in Chad Mosley, who's with us, Assistant Director and City Engineer, to answer some specific details on this one.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Pamela.
I was talking to City Attorney, I do want to make sure that we're talking about accepting the grant, not so much about the project itself. So the item that's been published tonight is to accept a grant for $5 million to construct a bridge.
Right, consideration of acceptance of the grant.
Right.
And
just a reminder, and if Chad is available, definitely have him provide more information.
Understood. I think we have some leeway to consider the factors that would go into weighing whether to accept the grant. And so let's go ahead and take that follow-on question. And so thank you, City Manager Wu and Director Morley. I think you were introducing our
Assistant Public Works Director and City
Engineer. Thank you very much for that. I was going to say, which one do I say, Assistant or City Engineer? So Chad, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. To answer probably the most pressing question was, is this a safety issue? And at the moment, it is not a safety issue. Caltrans provides bridge inspection reports. Those reports also have photos in it, and I'd be happy to share that with you, Councilmember Willie, and the rest of the council if interested. The bridge inspection report we received this year gives that bridge a sufficiency rating of 46.5. And typically when bridges dip below a 50 score for sufficiency rating, you're getting into the territory where they may be eligible for replacement. If a bridge gets a sufficiency rating below 50% and has also structural deficiencies, that is definitively time to replace the bridge. We have not hit the structural deficiency point yet, but the bridge is over 100 years old. It does need quite a bit of work to kind of bring it up to speed. And typically this infrastructure has been, it typically has a design life of anywhere from 60 to 80 years. We're at 100 with this one. And additionally, this bridge only has pedestrian access on the north side of the street. There is no pedestrian access on the south side. So we need to move people across the road if they want to head west or east and they're on the south side. It's better to kind of provide those pedestrian facilities on the south side. So there's a number of aspects that make this a good bridge for reconstruction. Again, the inspection reports and some of the other factors. And again, when this grant funding came up, we saw an opportunity to apply for those funds. We do monitor the condition of all of our bridges, and when this opportunity came up, the city manager asked us to jump on what we thought would be a good funding opportunity, and we jumped on this one just because bridges aren't necessarily very enticing projects for the community, and people don't necessarily like to throw a lot of money at them. And we do know that there's a lot of money out there for infrastructure projects right now. And so we thought, why not jump on this opportunity? We've got this. With this money, we can get a design, get a shovel-ready project. We'll have matching grant funds for other opportunities. We've thought this is the perfect time to get started before that bridge does hit a safety issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Woolley. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So now that we have you here, Chad, and you seem to know the most about the grant itself, is this the bridge area on McClellan? Does this look familiar with regard to the replacement that we're looking to make?
That is correct. That is the bridge we're looking at.
Okay, so basically what we're talking about is this stretch of road here that goes over Stevens Creek.
Correct.
Okay, so the north side you're talking about, this looks like, if you can see my pointer, this looks like the pedestrian access you're referring to, is that right?
That is the south side of the bridge, and that is actually the golf course access for Deep Cliff. It connects hole 17 and 18.
I see.
On the north side there, you can see the railing, and that is the bridge that we've constructed for pedestrian access on the north side.
Right, of course. So this is McClellan Ranch right here. You can see that the red barns in the background. So here you're talking about the pedestrian access and rebuilding this part of it. Is that right?
We're not 100% sure if we're rebuilding that part or not. What we're talking about is the actual car structure that may include replacing that pedestrian access on the north and incorporating it into the bridge design.
Okay.
But that's a little premature.
Okay, so essentially,
and we would also include pedestrian access on the south side of the bridge, connecting the sidewalks that are on both east and west of Stevens Creek there.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me just ask kind of a couple of real quick procedural questions. if we were to be looking at this going forward, and I guess this is also a question for Director Morley, would we have that list of various items, inclusive of this particular project that we could be considering, so that, it's great to get $5 million, don't get me wrong, but can we have some notice as to the possibility of the money coming in, and if it does, it getting allocated to various projects? So as we sit here today on September 6, 2022, if we're looking at future opportunities, can we have an ongoing list? Is there a plan to create that kind of ongoing list for notifying the public and council that these types of opportunities may well indeed get supported through, this type of mechanism?
For this project specifically, yes, we'll be bringing it back to you in phases for your input when we do a design agreement for it, when we do a construction design for it, when we do award of construction projects. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to weigh in on the scope of the project. If you're speaking more broadly of sort of unfunded maintenance or unfunded capital needs that are out there, that's part of our intent, is to grow that list. I think it's probably an iterative process over time as we pull these things together. A lot of it is pulling data from reports, so we can get a great start with, for instance, having a discussion on how pavement maintenance fits in with facility maintenance, fits in with some of our parks maintenance, things that we already have numbers on. There's some areas like bridges that we have to dig into Caltrans reports, so it's a little bit more digging and estimating that we'll do. We'll bring those projects forward in sort of an unfunded maintenance list with maybe at first a little less specificity on costs, but as a need, so you have an idea of what's out there. And then there's certainly new construction, new efforts that fit in there as well, that are efforts that improve infrastructure, that are above and beyond what's sort of capital maintenance of what's there. So lots of elements that start to feed into a list for council consideration. Our goal is to ultimately to start to round out that list.
Okay, great. That's great. It was actually a very brief question, but procedurally, the second question I have is pertinent to this consideration here. And I remember this because I saw the letter well after the fact, probably in the maybe July timeframe. It was dated on my birthday, in fact, March 17th. It came from our then city manager and talked about the request for funding here. It didn't actually get vetted with any of the public or with council. So if we had another opportunity and basically, someone from the state says, hey, do you have any projects that you'd like to go ahead and recommend? As you sit here now, is there any kind of procedural difference that we might take to, help notify the public or the council that, maybe 5 million is being requested here, 1 million is being requested there? So any kind of check-in within the process that, we could perhaps try to refine or improve for the future purposes?
Absolutely, great question. So my preference, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I understand
I'll partially answer your question and partially suggest that you defer it.
Sure, of course.
So we don't. We don't presently have a grant funding policy. Other jurisdictions do, and there's others that don't. So there's really a wide range of practices that different jurisdictions follow. So if that's something that council, wants to pursue, that's something that could be agendized and could be discussed. But at present we don't have a policy, and so when these kind of opportunities arise, it's within city manager and staff's discretion to pursue them.
Yeah, and I would suppose this might be the right time to kind of express that interest in having some kind of notification that these types of substantial expenditures and requests for grantings of, even windfall allocations are, good to kind of share with the public, I think is essentially the sentiment. So
to your point, Mayor, the area or the path that I've had great success with in the past is keeping in mind that sometimes these grants opportunities come with short timelines, is to make the application and to be proactive in acting. But at the same time as the submittal is going in, to inform the council, and we can inform the council through items of interest so that you get that information, and if it's the will of the council at that point to call for an agenda item specific to that, so that you can provide direction to staff.
Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for the transparency and the commitment to the future. Let me go ahead, Vice Mayor Chow, and check on other hands. And I'm trying to remember who has spoken on this. Councilmember Moore, you have your hand raised. Have you spoken on this item yet? You have not. So let me go to Councilmember Moore first before going back to others who have spoken already. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. So to me, this item should be on our CIP list. So, and where I'm concerned is that the former manager requested for like 2 projects. There was a fiber optic network project, which was requesting millions of dollars there, and then there was this bridge, and it just strikes me as being a little bit beyond the issue of not having a grant funding policy, but we also don't seem to have a policy where the members of staff could ask for grant funding for a project that we've never heard of. And that seems to be pretty problematic. And when we were going through the CIP process, selecting our items this year, those projects needed to go for consistency analysis to the Planning Commission to make sure that they were consistent with the general plan, and then to council, and we did our prioritization and all that. With this project, where I'm concerned is we have this line in the staff report that says the bridge is not currently considered unsound or structurally deficient by Caltrans, but the reconstruction of the bridge would help to enhance public safety, emergency access, et cetera. It seems to me that this particular project should have been vetted by the Planning Commission for consistency analysis and then come to the council and be put on the list perhaps as a multi-year project. So I'm concerned about that particular process. Let's start with that if someone wants to comment on it. And lastly, it says the city intends to seek other funding opportunities to cover the remaining project's costs. And as these funds are provided to the city without restrictions, it could serve as a significant match for other funding opportunities. That's important to me because I thought when we were looking at this grant that it would become a special revenue fund, kind of like the Measure B 2016 dollars, which we know will go to transportation. But when I look at the budget, I thought that the $5 million would be perhaps listed as the McClellan Bridge project, and that the members of the public would expect that that money would go definitely for that bridge. When I read this sentence here, I'd like to have this explained. What does this mean? And I think you've touched on it, that it's provided to the city without restrictions, to me means, and I think I've heard it, that it doesn't have to go to the McClellan Bridge. It can go anywhere. And I would like to know if that's the case, how far, what can it end up being put into any other part of the city budget? Okay, thank you.
Okay, fair and good questions, and not necessarily the easiest ones to answer, but I'll move the mic over to Director Morley. Did you want to speak to?
Yep.
Yeah, those.
So I'll take it from the tail end. The funds are allocated by the state for this specific project. So these dollars, unless the state makes legislative action to change the appropriation of the dollars, these dollars are tagged to McClellan Road Bridge. Our option is to not pursue the project and return the dollars to the state. So that would be the other opportunity that we would have. With respect to getting these projects that are sort of off-the-cuff projects, spur-of-the-moment projects into the CIP, this project will certainly end up in the next CIP, and long before we're able to act on it. So you'll be able to provide that input and rank this project, and the Planning Commission will be able to provide assurance to us that it is in alignment with the general plan and other plans that the city has in place. So that box will be checked, that evaluation can be done. that's the sort of the path I think that we have when we have these large funding opportunities that come where we haven't necessarily been anticipating it.
Yes, thanks very much. And Councilmember Moore, you are indicating follow-up here.
Yes, I'm still not sure about what is meant by these funds are provided to the city without restrictions. What does that mean? So it sounds like it is restricted to McClellan, so that's great. But what does the sentence mean? What does without restrictions in this case mean?
So it's without restrictions as to how the funds are used for the project. So they're not design dollars, they're not construction dollars. They're for any use on that particular bridge with a broad scope. So the McClellan Road Bridge project.
Great. Great answer. I think that phrase was actually causing some confusion. And then Councilmember Moore also had a question with regard to the financial classification of these funds. Are we talking about a special fund, or is this just all going in the general fund? How are we accounting for this inside of your departmental accounting or within finance if it needs to be?
So any funds that we get specific from a grant fund, if they're not reimbursement funds, they are held separately in a separate accounting function, so that they're not spent on other projects. And we are subject to audits from the state, so we have a very detailed project expenditure plan that we would have as a record of what dollars went where on this particular project.
Okay, so you have a special fund under the CIP budget to account for the dollars spent here and the dollars received.
Fund is more of a term of art, so it's a separate accounting mechanism for making sure that these funds go specifically to that project.
Okay, and what is that accounting mechanism? Is that just a separate? How would you describe it?
So they're earmarked in our accounting. So if you think of it as a CIP checking account, there's various projects in that account that have dollars associated with them. And so they're directly tied to it, but they're not necessarily kept in a separate location. And I'm not sure, but I'm sure that somebody's telling me right now whether these funds are reimbursement based or funded upfront. I believe this one is a reimbursement based, which is typical for a grant.
Okay, so it sounds like it's under a special project itemization within your budget, and it's not necessarily. That money isn't necessarily, we're not taking $5 million and putting it into a special fund to get reimbursed after the amounts are spent. Is that correct?
We end up with too many special funds if that occurs with small amounts of dollars in them. So it's a financial tracking, like a checkbook type mechanism that allocates them and ensures that the dollars are spent only on this project. And frankly, if there's any dollars left over at the end, they go back to the source.
Okay, well, it's probably a good bookmark for audit in the future for the committee to kind of take a look at as to how that looks, but we certainly don't need to go into that level of detail here tonight. Vice Mayor Chow, you had some follow-ups. Let me just check in quickly with the rest of council. So I don't see hands raised there. So Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, thank you. So you mean it's reimbursement based? That means the city needs to advance the fund first and then apply for reimbursement from the state?
That's how all of our grants typically work. Okay. There's a cash flow mechanism there. We actually apply for reimbursements as projects develop. So as we invoice, we get dollars back.
Okay, great.
So I do want to correct myself on this one. I've been told that in this particular one, although it's a bit of a unicorn, we do get the dollars up front. So this should be a $5 million check from the state. So this one's a bit of an anomaly. All of our other grants, for instance, Measure B or state transportation dollars are on a reimbursement basis. So this one is the anomaly, so it is an upfront payment of $5 million.
Maybe because it's from a budget bill from this year, so maybe that works differently from normal infrastructure grant.
Correct. It's a different way of having dollars flow from the state to the local communities.
Yeah, I think at the Legislative Review Committee, we invited the representatives from the Assembly member Evan Lowe and Senator Cortese to understand these specific budget bills. They say this only happen when we have surplus. It doesn't happen regularly. Therefore, there might be a very short application window that staff have to meet the deadline, and we miss the deadline for the Senate request. but fortunately, the staff actually got another bigger grant from the state for the VR shuttle. So, but I do want to request that in the future, can we include the map for this kind of project? Because at first I didn't know where it is. So this is what I found. I understand that it's a bridge over Stevens Creek. Then I traced over Stevens Creek, which is in a blue line that's very hard to see. But where Stevens Creek bridge cross McClellan Ranch, that's where we have the McClellan Road Bridge. Then there is another bridge where the creek cross Stevens Creek. And that's where we have another bridge that's also 120 years old that I was referring to. So it would be really appreciated if next time we have a map. Because, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would even point out at the time we had already annexed Lawrence Midi. So if we had had more of a public discussion, I would even say something like the bridge that goes, along Saratoga Creek that leads from that area of the trail to the new parcel, the triangular parcel, for instance. That may well get a lot more utility for us in the future if we were to do some work over there. So, but I do thank staff for their responsiveness here. But I think it's fairly clear, some more transparency and communication, as with any process, can be had to the benefit of the public. So, again, thank you very much. We will go ahead and entertain a motion under the recommended action. I'd like to request that. Councilmember Moore, would you like to bring that motion?
Sure. I move the recommended action.
Very good. And Vice Mayor Chow, you have a hand raised, although Councilmember Willie had his hand raised in Zoom, so I might defer to him if that's okay with you, Vice Mayor. Okay. Councilmember Willie, did you want to second this motion?
Yeah, good project. I second.
Very good. Okay, so let's go ahead. I don't see any further hands raised at this point. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote on item number 15?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wei?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, well, we have been going for a couple hours now, but I'm going to be ambitious about this and try to get through our second reading of ordinances before taking a break. Item number 16 is conducting the second reading of an ordinance related to regulation of single-use plastic foodware and single-use carry-out bags. The presenter is Ursula Serova, our Environmental Programs Manager, as listed on the agenda. However, this being the second reading of ordinances, I'll go ahead and check in with our city manager. Is there any new information to provide between how this sat at the first reading at our prior regular council meeting and where we sit today?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding is that there's no changes to the first reading. So this is exactly how council has approved from the previous meeting.
Okay, then let me go to our members of the public to see if there are any comments based upon that. Ursula Serova, welcome. I do see that you're here and available for questions. If you wanted to say a few words on the item, please feel free to do so before I go to our members of the public. And it looks like you are in good shape there, so no need to say a few words. I don't see any members of the public with their hands raised. Madam City Clerk, are there any blue cards on this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, and we'll just give you a moment in case anybody wants to mail cityclerk@cupertino.org. I will refer to Vice Mayor Chow, who did have an indication of wanting to speak on this item at this time. Vice Mayor.
Well, I have a question. I think we received email from Restaurant Association, and they raised some concerns. I wonder if the staff has some comment regarding their concerns.
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. And Ursula or any member of staff, are you familiar with the email and letter that we received from the, I believe it was the California Restaurant Association?
Sure, I can speak to that.
Yes,
I did read
through.
What they sent. They seem to have read a slightly older version. They were concerned about several things. One was aligning exactly with AB 1276, which was in fact our intention. They had concern about not being able to offer people items through a drive-through for safety, but we do specifically make that point. So that's already in there. And then they were also concerned about the level of penalties. We were just bringing it to be locally enforceable. So that might be a city attorney question as to the difference between state law and local enforceable penalties. And I would just go back to a question from the first reading, which is that we would always lead with education and assistance before we'd get to a penalty place anyway. They were also concerned about the elimination of the single-use plastic bags for carryout. And similar to grocery, the carryout bag is, there is an exemption for if a specific item needs protection. So like the produce bag, is allowed at a grocery store that then goes into an allowable carryout bag. And that would also apply to restaurants. So if there was, for instance, a container of soup and it was felt that maybe an extra bag made of plastic would help make sure that didn't spill, similar to a grocery situation, that would be allowed. And then they were concerned about reusables for dine-in and dishwashing and the amount of waiver or temporary exemption that there would be. And they stated 6 months is not long enough, but we actually allow a year, and that can be applied for again. So it's not limited to 1 year.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Ursula. And Vice Mayor, any other thoughts?
Thank you. Really appreciate those. Will we be sending them a response to relieve their concerns?
I'd certainly be willing to help enable that, sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor.
I'm happy
Thank you,
to move the item.
Let me check in with Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, did you have any comments before we move the second reading of the item?
No, I was just going to move the item, but Vice Mayor can.
Okay, before you do that, Vice
proceed
Mayor, can we please ask the city clerk to conduct the second reading of the item?
This is the second reading and enactment of ordinance number 22-2239, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino amending city code to change the name of chapter 9.15, adopt new sections 9.15.090 and 9.15.125, and amend sections 9.15.100, 9.15.110, 9.15.120, 9.15.130, 9.17.130, and 9.17.140 to regulate the use of single-use food service ware by food providers and regulate the sale of single-use food service ware and expanded polystyrene foam coolers, and regulate single-use carry-out bags, which includes a finding that adoption of the ordinance is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. And Vice Mayor Chow, would you like to, at this point, make an omnibus motion between the second reading as well as enactment of ordinance number 22-2239?
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the ordinance 22-2239, and that the ordinance is exempt from CEQA, and then enact it thereof. Sorry, I don't have the right language.
Okay, well, let me just provide you language, and then you can simply assent. Would you like to move that ordinance number 22-2239 be read by title only, and that the city clerk's reading constitute the second reading thereof, and move that ordinance number 22-2239 be enacted?
So moved.
Okay, very good. Would anyone like to second Vice Mayor Chow's motion? And so I see Councilmember Willie with a hand raised in Zoom. Councilmember Willie?
I second. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any further discussion from colleagues on council at this time? No. Seeing none, let's go ahead and conduct that roll call vote. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. We are on to item number 17. After public hearings and ordinances and action items, I see the clock reads 8:58. Let's go ahead and conduct, not conduct, but take a brief break. We'll reconvene at 9:05, and we'll see you then. Thanks very much.